All right. Perfect. So it shows that we are on YouTube and now we're on Facebook. That's perfect timing for my phone to ring too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Story. I promise I'm almost done.
No problem.
Perfect. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know there are several folks that have already hopped on here with us, and I respect your time and know that you have a lot more content that I want people to hear than just me fiddling around over here. So we will get started. And it is Friday, and generally I have a cheerier mark for Friday, but today I just wanted to share, it is 9/11. So I just wanted to, it's a somber day. I think everybody knows that at this point we're all connected through this one day and had our own individual experiences right then. But thank you to all those service men and women that went in, and of course to those folks that have departed our lives. We recognize and acknowledge that and are here to show support for those families that had to endure that. So to get us started, today is Friday, and as you know, I usually round out the week with some updates, whether it's city, county, state, or federal, from our administrative positions that we work with and or elected officials as well. Now, I am Juliet Abdel, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce, and if you are new on this page, please be sure that you hit the like button, hit the follow so you can get those timely alerts. And if you are coming back to us, thank you for spending a day in and day out to get educated on all things going on in the community around us that affects business, that affects our residents, and just holistically, nationally, what that would look like. So appreciate you guys. As many of you are aware, we've been doing these videos on a daily basis since March. Many of those videos are available to you for replay in the video section of this Facebook page. You can also find it on our YouTube channel, that's Westminster Chamber of Commerce, or if you're interested, you can navigate over to our resource hub that's on the Westminster Chamber.biz page, that's COVID-19 updates. I dropped the link into the comment section of this broadcast so that you can find that, and I'll go ahead and display it temporarily right now. We're, of course, on a lot of other platforms, so engage with us on Twitter and on Instagram, where we post out other types of information. For example, we're leveraging our Instagram account to show you everything we're doing to maintain health, safety, and our guideline precautions for our gala at the end of this month. So if you're interested in seeing what fun items we're incorporating, how we're going to make that hybrid event happen, follow us on that Instagram page, and of course, read our news. So with that, I wanted to turn and bring your attention to the topic for today. It is our nationals updates. Now, I had with us John Gonzalez, I want to say it was July. It was almost 60 days ago to be exact. And at the time, we were kind of talking about the U.S. Chamber, some initiatives that they had going on, things that we were able to partner from a racial, social equity standpoint, and then more importantly, COVID-related items that we were working together to try and get that advocacy and needle moving. So since that time, as I mentioned, it's been about 60 days. I wanted to welcome John back with us to provide us that update from the Capitol nationally, of course, and then to touch a little bit on elections and endorsements and things like that. Now, as you know, I kicked off last week's broadcast with Lynn Bartles. We also had our Honorable Sherry John share kind of voter engagement, the importance of getting involved, but more so at any type of voting, any time in the year, not just this year, if that made sense. So that video is available to you to find at any point in time. Know that moving forward into elections, every Friday we'll be feeding you information related to voting, related to engaging as a citizen, and then understanding the candidates that are out there. So good morning to Parker Brown. I see several of you that are on here. Make sure that you comment with us, engage with us by asking us questions, providing us feedback along the way. We like to be engaging and energizing, and we need it more so than any other time today and the last 6 months of COVID. So I will mute myself. John, it's yours to take away.
Thank you, Juliet. It's great to be back with you again. That's right. It was 60 days ago. It was July 10th, in fact, the last time we spoke. And again, thanks for everything you do. Thank you for your leadership and your support for the business community in Westminster. We value your partnership a great deal. As you may have heard, the Senate failed to pass the so-called skinny bill yesterday. Now, Congress deserves some credit for early monetary and fiscal actions that prevented the initial economic fallout from being much worse. But, you know, we need more federal relief. The gridlock, but the gridlock has seized Washington once again. It's a political season, as you know. The lawmakers continue to play politics. The worse the situation will become, and the more it will cost us all. I mean, just take, for example, the average school district will face $1.8 million or $485 per student in additional costs for disinfectants, personal protective equipment, and other preparations to bring students into the classroom this year, which is in most places has already begun. Also, our airline industry. If Congress fails to provide additional relief, U.S. airlines may be forced to furlough 75,000 pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, and other workers. Our restaurants, for example, if Congress fails to do nothing, and they fail to provide the additional relief, the restaurant industry is on course to lose more than $240 billion by the end of the year. And then finally, small businesses. Approximately 4 million small businesses, or almost 13% of America's 31 million small businesses, have likely already exhausted their Paycheck Protection Program funds. So the longer Congress is paralyzed by inaction, the more storefronts lining Main Street are likely to close. So that's, as we see it, the cost of inaction. Now the House returns next week, so we'll see if they can find a path forward and get negotiations back up and running, because time is running out. I mean, remember, the end of our federal government's fiscal year is September 30th, and Congress plans to adjourn on October 12th to start the home stretch of towards Election Day. So there's very, very little time left to get this all done by September 30th. So what are we doing? What are chambers of commerce doing across the country? We're doing everything we can to ensure business priorities are addressed, but we need your help getting them across this finish line. That's why we're always asking you to call and email your members of Congress and let them know we need more federal support for these sectors. Speaking of politics, you may have seen we've been in the news regarding candidate endorsements. We've gotten some praise. We've heard a lot of feedback from our members and chambers across the country. But you know, the bottom line is that the mission of the U.S. Chamber's endorsement program is to recognize and support pro-business candidates and those who have worked to advance the policies we support, both Republican and Democrat, for the U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives. As you know, we've endorsed Senator Cory Gardner, and supporting these candidates for public office helps us further our goals to achieving pro-business legislation on Capitol Hill on behalf of the business community. And for over 100 years, 108 years, I think to be exact, the U.S. Chamber has never engaged in presidential elections, and we will not do so this 2020 presidential election year either. We are not a single issue organization, and our congressional scorecard reflects the diverse interests of our members. But we also recognize that in order to work in the best interests of our members, it takes bipartisanship support if we want to be successful. And I think most people would agree with that. So back in January of 2019, we revised our scorecard to be more fully recognized, to really kind of fully recognize members of Congress for helping to advance pro-business policies, while also encouraging members to reach compromise necessary for effective governing. To help that goal, to hopefully get to that goal that we were looking for or trying to achieve, we added 3 new components to our scorecard, which is the scorecard has been the same since the 60s. So almost 50 years of the same scores, the same scoring system that we used. And so we made some adjustments. We thought it was time to make some adjustments. So the first was our legislative vote score. So still 80% of a total score of a member of Congress functions exactly the same way. And so if we're opposed to a piece of legislation, we key vote it, and 80% of that score is exactly how we've always done things. But we thought it was important that we add a couple of other factors, both in 10% tranches. So legislative leadership score. Well, what's that? So 10% of a legislative leadership score is based on the number of chamber endorsed bills a member co-sponsors and chamber opposed bills that the member declines to co-sponsor. And then bipartisan engagement score is that last 10% piece. So what is bipartisan engagement score? The score is based on the share of bills other than formally opposed by the chamber or co-sponsored by a member that were introduced by members of the opposite party. So if you are truly bipartisan and there's a good bill out there and you decide to co-sponsor it and it's the other party, we give you, a little bit of cushion there with a 10% of that score. So as a result of those changes made this election cycle, our scorecard resulted in 192 House Republicans and 30 House Democrats managed to have a lifetime score of 70%, which has always been the threshold used for endorsements. So again, 192 Republicans, 30 Democrats were able to score above 70%, which has always been our benchmark for our support. So look, in this current very partisan environment, few members of Congress agree with us on everything, but our work to build relationships with Democrats proved effective, not only as evidenced in their scores, but also, more importantly, by the legislation we have been able to achieve because of their support. And most notably, if you remember USMCA, the trade agreement that we worked so hard on, and we had a lot of members on both sides that were very supportive. And without the Democrats' members' help, we could have probably never gotten USMCA across the finish line. So, again, we're nonpartisan, and finding members of Congress who are willing to govern and support the pro-business policies that we support is critical to our success. And even local and state chambers, it's critical for their success at the state and local level. And with that, don't forget to vote. Happy Friday. Thank you for talking about 9/11. It's certainly a day that most of us remember very well. And I'm happy to turn it back over to you and take any questions.
Absolutely. And thank you, John. I appreciate you touching on that in your last comment, and for all of the comments that you've made already. We've had a lot of people hop on and off here with us, and I just want to welcome you all. We have John Gonzalez from the U.S. Chamber providing us a national update. He did start with Hill updates, and then he moved into the endorsement process from the U.S. Chamber, how they select those candidates, what that looks like on the backside, and then how many from both parties they were looking at. And John, I appreciated you re-emphasizing that over and over again. This is not about parties that we're supporting. This is about the general principle or the idea, and that's pro-business. And regardless of what party line you're on, if we can align on that, then we can work with you on things. And often, as chambers and as U.S. Chamber, I'm sure, we get the rapport of just supporting one party over another. And while that has generally been the case, mainly because they have supported select items of ours, but it doesn't mean that the other side doesn't. So I appreciated you breaking down that endorsements that you've done, 192 for House Republicans and 30 for House Democrats as well. And this, when this endorsement came out, I'll be the first to say, as soon as I saw it, there was a lot of back and forth from chamber communities, a lot from communities that chambers support that actually went to their local chambers and said, we're pulling out of you, and here's all of this stuff. And one, they didn't research to know that it was obviously our national party that's moving that forward. But they didn't look at how they got to where that moved. So they just looked at the party, which is one of the key problems that we're going through today. We have a lot of folks that are on here that I just wanted to recognize quickly. Some of them have given us some comments. I wanted to pull that for you as well. We have State Representative Tracy Kraft-Tharp. Good morning to you. Thank you for hopping on here with us on this broadcast. I know Tracy is also in a election year, and she is running for a county commissioner seat in our states now. And we also have Councillor DeMott. Good morning to you, Councillor. Thank you for hopping on here and being engaged with our business community. And of course, Councillor Seymour as well. Happy Friday to you. Thank you for chiming in. Now, a lot of the comments that John has shared, I've actually captured into the comment section of this broadcast, but please, I encourage you to bring your own comments and questions as well. Feel free to scroll through, and if there's something that stands out. There are two things that I personally wanted to ask you. One is, I always end up speaking to an audience and I go at 180 miles an hour and think everybody's right there with me. And I'm like, oh, if you're not familiar with this term, I probably should explain that to you. So I'm going to move back a little bit and have us go to the scorecard and explain to folks, what is that and why we use that to begin with. Since we've captured, that this hadn't been updated for over 50 years. And now that it has been, we've added these newer criteria that you've discussed, the 20% new scoring that's in there, which I've captured. But let's help others understand, what is this scorecard that we're referencing and why we use that.
Right. Thank you. In fact, in 2018, before the 2018 election, we started talking about how we need to start being more engaged with members of Congress from the Democratic side. We've always had Democrat lobbyists on Capitol Hill, but not as many. But, things started shifting a little bit. And like any organization that sees things shifting, you're going to need to overcome those challenges or deal with those challenges. And so we started reaching out to more Democrats to let them know that, we're not, we want to work with you, not against you. It'd be a lot easier if we worked together, and let's work on the issues that we agree on. And then hopefully you'll hear us out on the issues that we don't agree on. So that was back in 2018, so more than 2 years ago. And then we had to reflect that in the score in our scoring, because like I said, since the 60s, for over 50 years, we've done it the same way. It was either you're either 100% with us or you're 100% against us. And a lot of those bills that we may have supported or not supported, there were probably some good things in there. That wasn't probably all bad, but we couldn't. How could we identify those? At least give some support to members that say, of both sides of the aisle. How can you be recognized if you're out there agreeing with us on changes or not co-sponsoring that bill? And so that's how we thought we'd be a lot more inclusive if we were to do that.
Of course, yes. And thank you so much for humoring me and putting that into perspective for folks. I think that's amazing that you guys took a step to look back and adapt to what is the present condition that's going on and really enhance that scorecard to capture some of those changes. I think that speaks volumes. Good morning to Sean Kaiser. I also see Jason Ganal on here with us. Councillor Bowles is hopping on, and he's also thanking you, Don, for the updates that you've provided and sharing a nice weekend note as well our way. So I have a couple of questions to you. One, we're going to go back up to the start of this. At the start of this, we discussed the PPP and how there has not been a resolution to date. It's been about 60 days since the last time we chatted with John, and we were hoping that between that time, there would be some movements toward a more streamlined or an easier bill that supports our small businesses. And I thought it was great that you shared some of the statistics. While the statistics are not great, but it was nice to put those out there for folks to really see the difference that inaction will have on various members of our business community, from our small businesses, over 4 million that are affected by this, to our restaurants and more. What is, and I know this is generally has been an issue with partisanship, a gridlock that's going on, and this with Senate being there and having an opportunity, and next week House is coming. So what's to say, next week again, that we don't wind up in a similar situation, and how can we continue to support our businesses and encourage those members of our elected by and for us to put partisan politics aside and really focus on the core issues in our local community?
Well, we're still hopeful. Hope springs eternal. We're going to continue to make the case for the need for more federal support. There's time left. But think about, I don't know about you, Julia, you probably weren't like this, but when I was in college, I waited till the night before to start working on that term paper. And Congress works similarly. Right. So they know they have a hard deadline on September 30th, right? So, the House had a $3 trillion bill. The Senate originally had a $1 trillion bill. The bill they tried to pass this week was the so-called skinny bill, which was about $300 billion. It had basically all the same features of a phase 4, but just $700 billion less. It was very partisan. All the Republicans voted for the skinny bill, except for one. I think Rand Paul did not, from Kentucky. And then all the Democrats voted they were opposed to it. So we're hoping, once the House gets back on Monday, that they resume negotiations and talks and do a lot of finger pointing and eye poking And then at the end of the day, by the time we get to the 30th, we'll have some relief that either carries us through the end of the year or into early next year. Because remember, the transportation bill expires. I believe WRDA expires. The budget itself expires on the 30th. So there's a lot to do in about 2 weeks time.
Right,
so
in a short period of time. Yeah.
So they need to continue to hear from us that they need to do something.
Absolutely. So we're going to come back to our elections. And one of the things that you touched on was that you endorse candidates in the House and Senate, but you do not take part in presidential. And I was glad that you prefaced that, because again, that was one of the things that came out was, which position is the U.S. Chamber going to take on presidential? Historically, you've not,
No.
correct? Okay. And that has, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, we've never engaged in a presidential election race. We've never endorsed or endorsed in any candidate in a presidential election, and we will not, because we represent the United States, right. So it would be pretty silly for us to maybe endorse somebody and then that person doesn't win, and then we've got to represent
right.
the United States to the world with a president that we didn't support. So.
Absolutely. Optically, it doesn't look good. And then at the end of the day, you have to work with whichever one is elected. And so that does create more friction than necessary when it's already someone who's coming in, whether it's new or seasoned into that role. So, we talk about advocacy and we talk about a lot of voter engagement and individual rights and things of that nature. There's a pushback on businesses when they start to engage in politics. And we've seen this time and again. I've hosted over the last couple of years, we've been doing politics and business panels where we bring in business experts to share how they're getting active and engaged without having that repercussion on their business. Any words of support or encouragement to our businesses to still have their voice heard and not feel like they cannot, because they are representing a faction of our community and they should be represented, of course. And obviously, as affiliation with the chamber helps, right? And that's why we want to be their voice, because they're a part of a larger entity. And so it's not that company's logo is on something and it goes out and then there's a pushback on that business as a result of it. But individually, how can we keep motivating them to still have that voice without feeling like they have to be restricted?
I was on a chamber call with a Democrat legislator from Texas, state legislator. He's a great guy. I've known him for a long time, and it's fair to say he's a pro-business Democrat. And we don't agree or disagree 100% with anybody, but he's a great guy. And he said, and he put it so well. He's been at the state legislature in Texas now for 16 years, and he said it never the chambers of commerce help him so much when it comes to legislation, and they're almost like an aggregator, right? They can get on a Zoom call or be at a luncheon or a reception, and they get that diverse input from a Chamber of Commerce member or an event. And he said, I value chambers so much in my district, and that's why that's what's so important to him, and that's why we need to continue to get your members to be engaged, even if it's good. Like they like to hear when they've done something right. We always gripe at them when they do something wrong or vote the wrong way, or but when they hear from you that they're doing something right or they're doing a good job, that's important too.
Absolutely. Well, Councillor Bowles is reemphasizing a point that we have had as a theme throughout this conversation, and that's more bipartisanship. We're needing more working together, thinking of the greater good, especially as we've had a number of things that have it just compounded over the last few years. And then you throw in COVID and it adds on another dynamic and another layer. And to get out, there are two solutions, and that's bipartisanship, and the second is economic growth. And the only way we can do that is if we can get those businesses to get the support that they need. So we are at the 30-minute mark. Believe it or not, John, we always end up with so much more information that we're not able to squeeze in here. And that's why I like having these updates every few months. Hopefully the next time that we can bring you on here, we can have a recap of what's already passed, what that looks like, and how it can support businesses. If not, I'm sure there are other more pressing things that will have happened, and that's why they haven't passed. So either which way, we'll be able to come back with another update, hopefully in the next 30 or 60 days or so. But I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. We started off this broadcast by sharing it is Friday. It's a Friday that's notable for the date 9/11. I hope you all take that time to kind of just take a pause and think back and reflect on the many lives that were affected by this and where we are today, and how you can continue to move the needle personally in your community and the lives of others through kindness, through gratitude, through support, and through patriotism and love for not just being an American, but being somebody who is here and has a choice to make something and do something of themselves. So appreciate everybody that's hopped onto this broadcast and has tuned in with us, all of our counselors that are on here, of course, some of our state electeds and those seeking office. Seen a couple of board members hop in and out of this as well. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being a strong component of the community. If you found this valuable, which I know many of you have, please be sure that you share this video to folks in your network so they know what's going on at the national level and can get more understanding. One of the things that we always say, and I know John and I talked about this last time, is different layers of government have different roles, and sometimes people end up confusing those if we're not giving them as much information as possible. So this is a federal update, and we want people to hear the federal update lens as well. And if you end up watching this on replay and this is not live, give us the hashtag replay. Let us know you engaged with us and found this of value. If there are any questions that you did not get a chance to ask, DM us or comment it on the video, and we'll be happy to get that out to John and his team and get us an answer back. And of course, to you, John, I appreciate it. I'm glad you're doing well, and miss getting to see you in person. I hope we can fix that sometime in the future, and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you so much.